Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our virtual book review. I'm Dr. Heather Goode. I'm from the Vinci Institute. I'm on faculty there, and I'll be talking to Tshepho Langa, who's on the screen with me with a picture of his book in the background. And we'll be introducing you to Tshepho's book and going further to hopefully whet your appetite and give you a taste of what's in the book. I'm going to ask if you can please mute yourselves, and that during the meeting you're welcome to use the chat and put questions in the chat. We will use your questions and comments during the webinar today so that we can engage with you. And at the end of the webinar, we will have a question and answer session that you can ask questions directly. So welcome today, and I look forward to chatting about Tshepho's book. Tshepho, I'm going to just show a cover quickly so that everybody knows what we're talking about. You published your book last year, just after the pandemic started and we were all in hard lockdown. So you did a virtual online book launch last year and introduced your book to the world. What was that like?
Wow, it was mixed feelings. Firstly, I was excited that, my book was finally done.
Imagine.
Yeah. So, but then the second one was that the timing. It was a pandemic, and people were sort of very unsure, sort of in a panic mode. And then thirdly, the other feeling I had was that it was a good time because the book is self-help. So, it's something that someone can motivate himself with, yeah.
So, Tshepho, what led you to write this book? I mean, you've been working on it before the pandemic. So what led you to write this book?
Firstly, it was a childhood dream. And so I've always wanted to have books to my name. So, that is just something I wanted initially anyway. So, but then what prompted it was, going through a lot of things in life, and then you realize that, goodness, certain things can literally take you down. They really can take you down. And I realized that, the mind is something that you have to keep no matter what. Because sometimes we feel like, I'm the only one going through this, life is against me. And that is not true. Everyone is going through something. So I wanted to just share my thoughts with the world to say, guys, it is possible. You can control your thoughts.
Yes. So, Tshepho, when I think of your book, and I was privileged enough to read it, thank you for sharing it with me so that I could prepare. I noticed you touched on several things that are familiar, and yet you bring them together in a new way. And one of the things I think you imply is we will all have some kind of setback. We'll all have some kind of failure. And we kind of are led to expect that there's this one line up, and if the line doesn't go up year on year, you're off track forever. And yet you're presenting a different point of view. Why don't you describe that a little bit more to us?
Yeah. So life, Heather, what happens in life is that, if you have not, hit major problems, it means you're still going there. Okay.
It's coming.
Yeah. It's a fact of life. And, once that happens, you sort of really get to a point where sometimes you have to regroup, where that unpredictable thing happened, and now you have to regroup. And I just thought, you know what, let me present this in a Tshepho way, if I have to call it that. Yeah. And I wanted to just share the fact that after like the big hiccups that happened in my life, and then I started analyzing quite a number of things as to what type of stages do you go through. And that's why I even went into the ADI model. When I started writing it, it was not there. But the more I wrote, I'm like thinking, no, man, there's a pattern here. And that's what happened.
So, Tshepho, part of your book touches on crisis as an opportunity, both in terms of disturbing our thinking and making new things available. And if you have to think about the last 18 months, none of us anticipated the shift to working from home so much, the pandemic, and the resulting challenges that we now face. Would you add something different, or would you write something different as a result of the last 18 months if you had to release the book today?
I wouldn't think I would write something different. I would use different examples based on what,
Okay.
a lot of people went through now. I mean, a whole lot of things changed, and then we had to do things differently. Um, and obviously change is painful, so it's not always easy to handle and to manage. So I think I would use different examples. I mean, there are people that went through retrenchments. There are people that lost businesses. There are people that lost income. I lost a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it happens. So I think I would use definitely different examples.
So, Tshepho, when I read your book, I was struck by your use of principles, and I think that's what you're describing. The examples will change, but there's some key concepts you bring forward repeatedly. And I think you're building on the shoulders of giant wisdom there, in that we all stand on the shoulders of giants in our learning. So, thank you for that. When we were preparing this, you said that some people have asked you why the book is so short. And I thought, well, why haven't they complimented you on being that readable and succinct? This is such such an easy way to access some very important concepts. What has your feeling and impression been on feedback from people about your book?
I mean, the feedback on the book mostly was quite great, I must say. From the positive front, it was just they love the conciseness, they love the
Mm-hmm.
flow, easy to read, very natural in the language that is being used. However, from a constructive point of view, there was I think it was like 3 comments that I got that it's a beautiful book, but as you were writing, I mean, as I was reading, I was not looking forward to finishing it. I was enjoying and enjoying, and then boom, I'm done. So it was constructive, and I like the feedback somehow because it says to me, the guys were still enjoying it.
Go
So
out on
for
top.
me, yeah. So what I've learned from that is that possibly in the next one I will make it a little bit bigger, not too long, because in some of these long ones I struggle. I mean personally, when I read a book
Mm.
that is too long, chances are that I'm not gonna finish it.
Yeah, no, some of our textbooks get intimidating, I think. But Tshepho, as a faculty member, you've had to explain economic concepts and other management concepts and leadership to a wide variety of students. Did that experience help you write this book?
Sorry, Heather, I did not get.
As a faculty member, you've had to explain complex concepts like economics, issues, and leadership to a wide variety of people. Did that experience help you write this book and keep it readable?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, because it's a learned skill over time
Mm-hmm.
to teach, so that you sort of it's complex things, and then you learn over time to make it simple. One of the things, I mean, from personal experience, I thought I was struggling with maths until I met one teacher by the name of Mr. Kateule. And he made maths so simple to me, to a point that I actually started teaching when I was at high school. So I loved it. The fact that, you can, the objective of education or teaching is to take complex things and make them simple. So that definitely helped me in terms of the book.
Oh, that's great. I was wondering about that. Tshepho, with the success of your first book, it's now almost a year later. You've had a lot of thinking time, like the rest of us at home. Are you thinking about writing another book?
I am writing it.
Tell me more.
But then I think like the first one, it will still take long. I mean, no rush, but I mean, I've already started. So it's an exciting book. I'll be writing about the title will be "What Am I Thinking About Money?" And so now I'll be delving into principles of money, looking at different types of finance and the basic principles that we often overlook and try to be complex with our money, and that sort of lets down. I mean, I'm already sharing too much, but it's very interesting because I'm sticking to the simplicity, even though I'm going to talk about different types of finance, what happens in the finance world, the history of money and all of that. But yeah, it's I'm already on it, and I'm just going slow.
It's very interesting for me to hear that you're talking about money as part of your next book, because you mentioned the stories we tell ourselves in this book. And you make the distinction between imagination and thoughts. And I found that a very interesting distinction. Won't you share that with people today?
Okay. So I said, an imagination is anything that just sort of pops into your head. But a thought is active. It is something that is sort of going slowly and gradually, being operational in your head. All right. Whilst an imagination is just something. I mean, I can imagine myself, flying from an aeroplane and not getting hurt. Okay. I mean, my second son, he likes saying, "Dad, just imagine we could just fly off to the sky," that kind of thing. So that is just an imagination. But a thought is something that is active, and it happens when you have internalized something.
Yes. No, that's really interesting. Thank you. So it's not just what we think, it's what we do with what we think and whether we believe what we think. Yes, and I found that very, very helpful. I understand you're doing your doctorate at Da Vinci, and what made you do that? I always ask this of people who do doctorates.
That's an interesting question, because I might just start asking and say, goodness, did I really enroll for this?
Then you're on the normal doctorate journey, as far as I can tell.
So, I mean, I enrolled for it, Heather, the doctorate, simply because, I mean, I love the space that I'm operating in. I love education, both formal and informal. So I love teaching in a nutshell. So as I grow in academia, I don't think it is absolutely a choice. It becomes sort of inevitable. I find myself in that space that it's inevitable that I must do this. Okay. Because as I grow, I sort of want to improve and get into a higher gear. And then I can't do it if I'm not empowering myself more. So I'm intentionally sort of improving my capacity.
So what are you doing your doctorate on?
It will be on entrepreneurship and coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are using some of the ideas you've presented in your book. No, that's very interesting. So I think for all of us, we underestimate how transformative postgraduate studies are. And transformative basically means we're going to get stretched, we're going to get uncomfortable, and we're going to have to change our thinking so that we can change what we do. So yes, there's a lot of growth. And I just couldn't help thinking that was very relevant in the context of your book. What is the best advice you ever got when you think back over your career in writing this book, in looking at doing your doctorate and what you've learned over the years? Because to be able to do your doctorate, you've been through stuff.
Absolutely. I think the best advice I got from my grandmother, I mean, she was a darling to me. And, she always said, if you really, really want something, you can have it. And another thing that sort of also pushed me into a doctorate, it is those words of hers, subconsciously, because she said to me after I got my master's, she was so excited. And in all that excitement, she called me on the side and said, "My son, you are not done." And she says, "Why do you go to an LQF 9? Why don't you finish the NQFs?" Yeah, so that contributed somehow, in my subconscious mind because I don't forget those words.
Were you the first person in your family to get a master's?
No, I've got big shoes to fill, Heather.
Oh, okay. Yes. No, that does help, hey? But it's also
No, it doesn't
challenging.
help. I think it puts me under a lot of strain. My mother has got a doctorate.
Mm, yes, no. I think I was the first person to get a degree in my extended family, but not the first doctorate. So there's a lot of challenge and growth in our family. Yes, no, I think your book writing might sort of help and hinder your doctorate studies, but we wish you good luck for that. So I have to ask you, what are you currently reading?
Oh, I'm currently reading, Reaching the Man's Soul by John Eldredge.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, it's very much, what is this? It's about raising boys and raising men. And it talks so much about, what do you call it? It talks about the experiences of a male and when they grow, they need a father at a young age. They need a father as they sort of get into being teenagers. But something that also gets forgotten is even when they become young adults, they need you in a different strength. So it's very
Mm.
interesting. And I mean, I'm reading it basically because my kids are, I mean, they are in their teens now. So you're sort of thinking, hey, I
Oh.
need to be a step up here.
No, that's great. I mean, and it sounds like you're also wrestling with some of the issues that are very much on the table in South Africa when we look at the news of what is healthy masculinity. I mean, we look at the role of men, we look at the gender-based violence, we look at the shifting role of breadwinners. I mean, when a family has some of their breadwinners, retrenched and things, all the dynamics change. And what does it mean to have a good idea of your gender and your role in society? What have you
Absolutely.
found to be a guiding principle to be a man in South Africa for you?
Um, you know, as a man, we sort of historically, you sort of perceived as somebody that is always strong, should not cry. Everything is your responsibility, kind of, patriarchal kind of
Mm,
families, and that is a lot of pressure. And you go to work, you also have pressures. So what happens is that also, when you get home, you might also have challenges at home, and all that bottle in together. And sometimes you just need to speak to a father and just express yourself. Because sometimes when we express ourselves to the female gender, does not get well translated. And that's what I have learned. So sometimes as men, well, not sometimes, we should, as men, talk because we go through a lot. And when we go through a lot, there's a lot of congestion, and that's why we best. And I mean, if you see things that
mm,
happen that men sometimes do to women, it's serious, but it's most the man is also a victim, of just circumstances. It's not an excuse. However, if we want to really deal
mm,
with it, we need to just find how to deal with the problems that are embedded in this man, because this man is just discombobulated. He's got a lot of things that are pressing him, and he has no outlet. He's not expressing
mm,
himself. So how do we need to sort of find ourselves and have buddies, that we can just express
mm.
ourselves to, have brothers, have fathers that we can express ourselves to. So I think that in the long term will really, really help us because we bottle up too much.
Yes. So Tshepho, you're talking about several key things. I think I noticed a shift in leadership recently where we've shifted away from the fact that our human leaders are infallible and the idea of admitting that sometimes we all need help. And I think this pandemic is one of those times. And yes, talking through things, shifting your own thinking by talking to wiser people. I mean, that's just a good leadership trait, not just a masculine trait. I mean, women need it as well. So, no, thank you for that insight. I think there's a lot we need to shift in our country right now. I mean, I was slightly horrified this week at the unemployment figures.
Yeah.
If you had to challenge our leaders and ask them to think differently about what's going on there, what is something you'd add to that conversation about how do we get more people working?
Yeah, that is an economics question.
Well, I've tried.
I would say something that is inevitable in South Africa if we really, really want to grow. You know, it will sound like a cliche, but we need to grow small businesses. The, you know, there is not the focus that we have on small businesses is it needs just too much of a revamp. Too much of a revamp I mean from many angles. One could be the red tape in terms of being integrated into the mainstream business. That's one. And then number two is that the education system needs to change. You know,
How would you like to see it change?
yeah, I mean, we can't, you know, have. I mean, we do not have, like, if you look at countries like China, they changed their education system before they started growing big. Okay, so because it's driven by a certain vision, so we need to get the change in a sense that we need to prioritize understanding business, you know, from a young age, and understanding that business is not only a big business, a small business is also a business. Because I think that, you know, in South Africa, you know, some of the things you read, you know, people sort of have an impression that when you have a business, it must be big, and not necessarily so. You know, if 100 of us have a small business that employs 5 people, that's 500 people employed. You know what I'm saying? So I think we can just really get into such modes. And also that's also pertaining to education will be, you know, the technical skills colleges. Those are missing in action. We all still need people to help us in the house with stuff, and that is still big business. We need plumbers.
Oh,
we need,
yes.
we need artisans. I mean, we still need all of those things. And as to why we are not waking up to that, I don't know. But yeah, there's quite a number of things that I could change. I mean, I can speak about it for long if I have to really go into the many things I think.
So one of the things I'm hearing you say is our definition of success is wrong. And if by not making the blue collar success as successful as, say, white collar, my apologies for the slip there, but the old idea of a more academic job, the more intellectual jobs being more successful than the artisan work and the craftsmanship that we can see sometimes. I mean, sometimes I look at the builders and woodwork, and I'm just in awe of what they've managed to do. You know, they really do bring other people's ideas to life and bring something of themselves in the projects as well. And they do things I can't do.
Yes.
And I think this idea of complementary gifts, we're perhaps missing from our definition of success. How do we shift from this idea of a competitive idea of success to a complementary and collaborative idea of success?
It starts with self-knowledge. And I mean, even in my book, if you read sort of carefully, you see that I talk to you know, purpose, self-knowledge, really understanding yourself, because really understanding yourself starts when you're young. You just don't comprehend it then. I mean, as I shared with you just earlier, I actually started teaching when I was at high school. I was in standard 8, which is a grade 10. And I was teaching the standard 4s, you know, mathematics. And I mean, for me, it was just something I enjoy because now I've found this thing that I really understand so much. Okay. And little did I
Yes.
know that, as I grow, I would actually get to a point whereby I realized that this for me is a calling. I need to do this. So there are other kids that, just love fixing things. They love designing some woodwork. And, sort of sometimes the education systems, I think unintentionally makes them feel like they don't have good dreams. But actually they do.
Yes.
Because everything that you have, as a human being, all 7 billion of us, we have something to offer. We just have to find it and do it. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's just my point. We have something to offer, and that those little dreams that we have can be achieved.
Mm. I noticed in your book you had a chapter on gratitude.
Yeah.
What do you do to develop gratitude in your life?
What with regards to gratitude, it's something that I learned, I think, 5 years ago, because sometimes you sort of worry because you sort of have this target in your life. This is what I wanted to achieve by now, and oops, I've not achieved it. Now you're putting so much stress on yourself, and then
Mm.
because of that, then your mind gets bogged up, and your energy levels are sucked in. So, but gratitude changes that whole energy. Just being grateful that,
Yeah.
what, I'm still alive. Grateful that I'm still able to buy groceries. Grateful, for the fact that my mom or my dad is still alive. Just
Mm.
little things. Grateful that, your child maybe might not be the best in class, but you know what? They enjoy themselves at school. My second born, he told me straight. He says, "Dad, I don't like school." But you know what? Every day, how was school? It was good. Just being grateful for that, and the fact that he actually passes. The fact, regardless of the fact that he says he doesn't like going to school, but so the gratitude for me, I learned that it actually boosts your energy. You stay
Mm.
in the positive space, and also something that's also has to go from being about just being gratitude, being grateful for yourself, is also being grateful for others. It is also a magnificent thing if your house, I mean, if your friend bought a beautiful house, compliment them. I mean, that energy when they get happy that, oh, thanks, Heather, it rubs back.
Yes, no, so we can be grateful and celebrate other people's success. Thank you. You've also answered my earlier question. I was going to ask you, if you could give us an example of how your own thinking's changed in the last few years. I think you've started that already by talking about gratitude, but has there been anything else that's shifted in the last few years of your own thinking as you wrote this book, as you prepared for this, the things you've shared with us? What's changed in your own thinking?
um, my attitude right now, I'm not scared. Um, when things are tough, I remember the fact that it's gonna get better, because I've learned that it does get better. So worrying about it and beating yourself up is not going to solve the problem. The problem is you are going to sit at the problem, I mean, look at the problem and check what are the options. So, I mean, I remember I looked at the fact that, I
Mm.
mean, at Da Vinci, we do online studies a lot nowadays, in terms of, class interactions. And some of them are in the evenings. When that came through, it was difficult for me because, I mean, that time I'm supposed to cook for my kids. So
Mm.
it becomes now complex as to how do I manage this. But then now I'm actually, I, I had to just renew my mind in a sense of, now, you know what? I am going to start cooking during the day. Okay. And then what does that mean? It means I've got less time in the day. So what else does that mean? It means maybe waking up earlier is not going to, it won't be a very bad idea. And I started doing that. And that has changed me a lot because I mean I get a lot done in the early hours of the morning.
Okay. So you're able to be an early bird. Okay, that's fabulous.
It
I
was
need
not
coffee
easy,
in the
Heather.
mornings. I was just thinking, in the book, you quote Richard Templer, who said that being creative in the rules of management is about finding new and different ways to solve problems. And I think you're kind of illustrating a lived example of that. So thank you so much. So in the book, I mean, you mentioned you're going to share a piece with us to give us a taste. I'm just going to review your profile now that more of our guests have joined us, and just give them a brief taste of who you are. And then I'll hand over to you to give a taste of your book so that we can explore your book. So Tshepho, you are a faculty member and a doctoral student at the Da Vinci Institute. You have been a consultant, a leadership consultant, educator, author, former bank leader. You have a number of qualifications, including an MBA, an advanced diploma in economics, a BCom, and you've been at various institutions over the years. You have even attended courses in France, so I'm guessing your French is better than mine. And you've written and published articles. You have worked in business, retail banking, and even in church ministry for over 19 years. So you have a varied and diverse experience of leadership and management, and you bring that wisdom to the classroom and both to this book. So I'm going to hand over to you to share a bit. I'm just going to mute myself so I don't interrupt.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Yes. I had a bookmark here when I had that, and then now it's gone.
Oh, Murphy's Law. So I think you said to us you were going to share about, not from the beginning of the book, but a little way into your book, so that we can use one of the insights you've got there about releasing anxiety. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Let me look in page 61. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to read the chapter on releasing anxiety. This is not the easiest concept to make a habit of. Anxiety is typically defined as a feeling of worry relating to a futuristic outcome. Driven people always have vision and goals that they want to achieve. The challenge is embracing the vision in the subconscious mind and not worrying unnecessarily about whether it will come to pass. Detachment from this anxiety is tricky when you really want the vision accomplished. When writing this book, I did experience some anxiety on whether it will reach the relevant readers that are likely to get value from it. It worried me that I might not get the message across as intended during the writing process. It is genuine worry. However, if I did not detach from it, I would not have enjoyed writing the book. I just had to trust the universe that the sincerity with which I write will pull the relevant readers. As a public speaker and lecturer, I often become anxious before my talk or my class. This is normal. It is humility for for my prospective audience. I cannot, however, prolong that anxiety in my preparation for my talk or class. I have to detach from it in order to be creative in my preparation. I have to intentionally detach my thinking from anxiety and to think on the great success that my talk or class will be. On a lighter note, when I was a teenager, and like any other typical teenager, I was beginning to have feelings for the opposite sex. It happened that I had to make a move at this girl that I was interested in. In preparation to approach her, I would have absolute torture, thinking, what must I say? How would she respond? I would then reply and keep playing around with the possible responses. With my maturity, or rather lack thereof at the time, I eventually approached her. As you might have guessed, I fumbled, with my toes sweating bullets in my shoes, while not making sense to this poor girl, who was also nervous. Funny how you'd be anxious of someone who's also anxious about you. Had I detached from my anxiety, I would have probably made a much better impression, not the mess I made. One day, while at my hometown, which is a semi-rural area with inadequate signage, road signage, I was approached by some lad who did not appear to be sober. He explained that he was lost and was looking for a supermarket. Um, Something strange was happening here. He wanted to get directions to this place, but he kept on telling me about how he got lost and how he even arrived where he had now met. Where we had now met. He asked me for directions, and all he had to do was to give me the chance to guide him towards his destiny. I learned that time that anxiety could be compared to him talking a lot when all he had to do was to be calm and listen to the universe, because the universe knows better. He had to detach from anxiety. The universe wants to help you, but you could be making noise while the universe is trying to guide. You mute.
Muted. You're right. I was thinking that's so true. Some of us are too busy to listen. And that's a very valuable point. Thank you. So becoming still is an important skill. Your book is titled, includes the ADI model. What does ADI stand for?
Oh, ADI stands for attention, detention, and intention. So that's how I summarize the book. I talk about a number of steps that go through. If you want to, for instance, build on an idea that you have and you want some productivity out of it.
Tshepho, you have written a very readable book. I think it's going to find its audience in South Africa. And I think the hardest part about your book is going to be the last piece, actually implementing the stories and principles you've shared so that we can also grow and change. But that's exactly what you wanted. You self-published this book, so it's available on Amazon and through your websites. I did pop in the chat some details. We'll post that again. But right now, I want to check in with our audience. Are there any questions for Tshepho? Any questions from anybody for Tshepho, or did we do too good a job? Gibson, your hand is up.
There's a hand.
Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Am I audible enough?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you very much. Regarding the issue of listening, I'm not a psychologist myself, I'm an engineer, but I know naturally as people, we are personal people. It might sound strange. In most cases, when you're listening to somebody, there's that element of just waiting for that guy to, shut up, so that you can bring your own story, into play. How do we train students and everybody else to say, while I'm listening, I'm less important than the guy speaking, because I've been a student as well at some stage, but I know there is a moment that actually you feel like you can be the one talking. We are personal people. I'm just using that word personal, as to refer to our inner selves. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Gibson. So, Gibson, you're raising some interesting thing, and I'm not sure if I understood everything you were trying to say, but I'll just respond on what I understand. Well, we are, as people, we've got different elements. We are spiritual beings, we are carnal beings, and we've got a mind. So those are three key concepts about a human being. And when I was talking about the listening, it's maybe something that I must also share is that we are typically too busy for ourselves. We don't spend time with ourselves. Wake up in the morning, you get busy, brush your teeth, take a shower, wake the kids up, whatever, go do your work. And then when you're tired, you switch on the TV. And then after the TV, you're tired, you sleep. When did you spend time with you? You misses you. So most of the time, I have made that habit, for instance, that I would spend time with me, maybe taking a walk alone. But it's amazing what happens in your mind at that time, because there's a lot of creativity in that time. And there is, I mean, one of the things that I mentioned in the book is in the ADI model is that you need to detain the thoughts. If something is bugging you, it could possibly have something to do with your purpose. So if you apply literally your mind, thinking about it, taking a walk, and making sure that as I take this walk, I'm really internalizing this thing, you get answers, because at some point something is gonna land. When I wrote this book, I did not have the money to publish, I mean, to do all the publishing and the printing. And I mean, I don't know if I'm sharing too much, but one of the thoughts that came in as part of the detention part of the ADI model was the fact that why must I worry about the money when I can sell this book before I print it? I sold it before I printed it. So the money that came in printed the book.
That's a useful investment. So I wanted to ask you about that actually, because you chose to self-publish. How was that experience for you? What did you learn during that process?
Not really. Because at first I wanted, I thought the natural way, just publish it. But then, goodness, there's a whole lot of process, with the publishing companies and so forth. So I did not enjoy that, and I had to put up a lot of money up front for it. And even the kind of things they were offering was not really what I wanted. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own. I started finding out info. I mean, I went on to some great research trying to get what does self-publishing mean? How do I do it? How is it my benefit? And now I'm actually loving it. I wouldn't publish through anyone else because I'm loving this. I can target my own segment of people. And you know what? Amazon is there also. There are other podiums that you can use. It's not even just Amazon. There's others. But I mean, I just for now, because I'm still learning, started with a few.
Yeah, so when you think about this, what advice would you give to aspiring authors? Because I know we have a few in the audience today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would say, if you want to be an author, you want to sort of make sure that take your time to write. Well, I don't believe in rushing when you're writing because, that book is going to be read by somebody. And what happens, when Tshepho writes, Tshepho thinks that Heather is going to understand what I wrote in there. But it's not always the case because we make sense to ourselves, but sometimes we fail to convey the message to the other person. So get somebody that can critique your book and get somebody to critique your book. That's important. And number two, make sure that it is, well, I don't know if that is just for a general person or for just me, but I want a book that will sort of intrigue, something that you want to keep. So get to a point where you really want the book to be something that a person wants to keep. They don't want to go and say, no, you can have this, I read it. I want a book that you want to keep in order to keep checking on something.
Tshepho, I know people can contact you through the Da Vinci Institute at your email address here. So if you want to email Tshepho, it's tshepho@davinci.ac.za if you have any questions and queries. Delia, I see you have a question for Tshepho.
Yes, thank you very much for the insightful book. My quick question is, when is your next book coming out and what are you going to write about? Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Delia. I think I addressed that a little bit earlier, but I think you were not in the podium at that time. So, but I'll quickly just answer that. I'm writing a book titled "What Am I Thinking About Money?" And I'm still sticking on to the thought process because I'm sort of trying to work with that because this is where most things actually go wrong or get blocked. So I'm talking there about different ways of how people look at money. Why do we see certain failures? Why do we see certain successes? Checking on principles of money and the value of money. So there's this. It's multifaceted, but it addresses the thinking about money. And then in terms of time, I've not set myself a time because I'm still also doing my doctorate. So I'm sort of, swimming, between two seas.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tshepho.
All right, thank you, Delia.
Tshepho, you must have had a lot of words inside you if you're doing a doctorate and another book.
I work like a horse, eh?
Yes. No, and I don't know how you do it with children, because your children are younger than mine, and I needed them to be busy when I was doing my doctorate. Sure. So, Tshepho, thank you so much for sharing your time. I've got time for one last question. Lawrence, I see your hand is up. Sorry, did I say your name right? I'm not sure if it's your name or surname. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello guys. My name is Lawrence, and thank you for hosting such a exciting interview or meeting, so to speak. Do you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
there was just a little bit of crackle with the storm, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to know how much is this book retailing for, and how easily is it accessible for someone like myself who's interested in reading more about it?
Okay. No, Lawrence, thank you for the inquiry. I priced the book at 250, which includes delivery. So I've just factored in delivery in it. It's just the business model I decided to use because it's simple to sell like that. And then the details that you can get it on from my website, which is www.tl-h.co.za. If you check in the meeting chat, it's there. And yeah, even my email is on the website, so you're able to contact me, and then you get your book delivered.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, my brother.
Tshepho, we wish you well, both with your doctorate and with your next book. It sounds like you've got an audience who's eager to explore your thinking and some more here. Thank you for the lessons you've shared and the experiences. Thank you for reflecting on your experiences so that we can learn. I think you're a true Da Vincian in this style of thinking about your thinking and sharing your thinking so that we can go further and deeper together. I appreciate you giving to the Da Vinci community in this way. Just a reminder that Tshepho's book can be accessed either through his website or through Amazon.com for an ebook copy version. You can email Tshepho at the email address in the chat, tshepho@davinci.ac.za. We will be publishing a written book review on the Da Vinci blog through LinkedIn and the Da Vinci website. So Tshepho will reshare those details. And I wish you good luck with the ongoing sales of your book. I think it's very timeless that you talk about changing your thinking for a crisis and releasing anxiety. I think these are lessons we've needed over and over during the pandemic. So well done, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. No, thanks to you, Heather, and thanks to Da Vinci. I mean, I'm a home of. I'm at home at Da Vinci. So, and one of the. You mentioned some very key things there, like remarkability. It's all about being remarkable. We want to really touch people's lives, both in Da Vinci and outside, and stay true to our brand. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and I've really enjoyed our conversation today. It doesn't feel like work for me at all. Thanks for being a colleague I can learn from, and I wish you a good evening, and thank you to all our guests. We will be ending here today, but please stay in touch with Da Vinci. We are available through social media. If you email Da Vinci, you would be able to get in touch with any of us if you need to. If you're considering studying, please go to the Da Vinci website and you'll be able to find out about our programs there. I wish you a good evening, and I hope that you have a lovely, relaxing weekend despite the cold front that seems to be coming over South Africa. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day.